Brian, did we make history today, or was it just kind of another day?
I think it was a historic day.
So I'm so old that I remember when the Russians put Sputnik in space. I am
Mhm.
so old that I remember that America went nuts when that happened. We were so devastated that the Russians had put the Sputnik up there before the Americans had done put their satellite up, that the country just completely came together and said we've got to be the one to get our act together. And of course, from there on, we pretty much were getting the firsts after that.
Mhm.
But now it's a private company. It's a
Mhm.
private company that's getting all the firsts. And
Yep.
man, you've been waiting for this day like no other. Talk to me. Talk to me.
So what happened with
Whoops.
this launch?
Whoops.
So it launched. You got the stage separation for the Starship, the fully reusable version. All the engines lit. So hot staging worked. The booster did boost back burn, so which is the main bottom part. It didn't reignite the engines to do the landing, a soft landing. The upper stage got to orbit.
Stunning. These are live views from Starship. First stage is currently performing.
So it flew for nearly an hour. It tried to do reentry burn at Mach 20, and then it lost tiles, and then probably burned up at that point. But still to be determined exactly. But the details are, both the upper lower stage got lost, but not before they got to orbit, not before they got most of the way back to some kind of landing. Um, the other thing is that they're going to do this pretty much every month. They've applied to the FAA to launch like 9 times or more this year, which is basically like starting from now every month, maybe even twice a month at the end. Um, so it was um, a glorious launch.
So, Brian, okay, so in terms of though, like all the things that I just went over, I mean, this we had then the first man on the moon, and then we had other people going to the moon, and then we had the space station, the International Space Station. We had what was it called? The one that flew. I'm sorry, like a plane. Why is it out of my brain right now?
Virgin Galactic, the one
Oh
that
no,
launched the
no,
plane,
I'm talking about the U.S. one, the U.S. Uh,
Pegasus rocket.
the Challenger and the ones that
Oh, space shuttle, space
oh,
shuttle,
space shuttle.
shuttle.
That's the word. Yeah,
Yeah,
and now Elon has changed it all. I mean,
right.
in just the last couple of 3 years, I mean, SpaceX has been moving up and moving up and moving up. But I think aren't we looking at 150 launches this year of the Saturn and the Heavy?
That's right. Not the Falcon 9 mainly, and then also the Falcon Heavy, 150 launches, which would be more than all the space shuttle launches. Over
Right.
30 years, the space shuttle launched, five of them launched 133 times. And this would be launching the Falcon 9 more than the space shuttle just in 1 year.
Right.
And they would also probably put more payload up there because the space shuttle configuration could only launch about 20 tons, which is the same as the Falcon 9. So yes, historic in terms of like how much they're doing. And if they get, these 9 launches and get to reusable flight with Starship, the payload goes up like 10 times, 200 tons instead of 20, which is more than the Saturn V moon rocket. And the thrust wise, it's already over double. When they improve the engines, you can get to triple the launch capacity of it. And let me just
And the
share
cost, and the cost,
and the cost.
the
The
cost
cost
per
goes way
pound.
down. If I'm only paying for fuel and the thing isn't damaged, then the cost it's already lower, far lower than the $20,000 per kilo from the space shuttle. The Falcon 9 is already way cheaper than that.
I mean, an order of
Um,
magnitude, right?
Order of magnitude, yeah, yeah. So it's already like down to, for The heavy you can get below $1,000 a kilo. I think maybe $1,500 per kilo. And then with the reusability, their costs, that's the price. Their SpaceX costs are below $1,000, right? Because they don't have to charge, there's no competition, so they don't have to lower their prices that much, right? Only if they feel like it. So that's 80-90% of their launches are their own Starlink communication satellite, of which they've launched over 5,000. So with the SpaceX Starship, if they're launching Starlink satellites, they will make them far bigger. So they can launch up and they'll be like coming out of the neck like a Pez dispenser. They open up the Pez dispenser door on that thing, and they shove out these flat packed satellites, and then the stacked up solar panels and antenna arrays expand out. So then, looking at this little diagram I have, the thing on the right is the rough size, 60 meters by 7 meters of what the Starship will be when it's unpacked. And you can compare that to the space station, where it's like almost as wide, 75 meters wide. But if you look at the football field below, that's how big that will be. But if these are 2-ton Gen 3 satellites, and I can launch 200 tons, I can launch 100 at a time. So it'd be, if I was to stack them together, it'd be like 700 meters, so 6 times wider than the space station, right? And they can make them, per launch. And weight wise, the space station weighs 420 tons. A mass of Starlink satellites would be 200 some tons, so half the weight. So 2 launches, and I do the entire space station. So this is the kind of crazy stuff we'll be doing. And if we have like, they've already approved for 7,500 of those. They want to update the FCC license to get 20,000 some, and they have another thing where they want to get 40,000, 120,000, right? If I'm launching 100 at a time, and I increase my launch rate from the 150 this year up to 2,000, 20,000, let's say 20,000, then I would launch 2 million satellites in a year. And I can just make them bigger. I don't want to put quite that many. If I just make them bigger, a monster satellite that is, the size when it unfolds of the space station, right? Then that massive complex is beaming down communications down to the ground. And they're looking to lower these satellites by 200 kilometers, going from 550 kilometers, which is about like 350 miles up, down to about 330 kilometers, which is about like 200 some or less, 200 miles up. So that means the latency, how long it takes to get a signal up and back, drops from like 6 milliseconds down to 3 milliseconds. The overall communication speed would be at cable internet speeds of like 20 milliseconds, like Xfinity at 20 milliseconds. Elon wants to get below that speed, right? So getting that no compromise replacement of communications all over is what they'll looking to do. And these are looking to communicate directly to your cell phone. And they've already done tests on that. And they did a test with 17 megabits per second of communication from the satellite. But if I get almost twice as close, then my signal can be far stronger. Maybe I up the communication speed by 4 times. I make a far bigger satellite. That could be 10 times better communications. Other improvements, so the speed of communication to cell phones could be, 2G everywhere when they build it out. Right. So that means like even when you're in Timbuktu, to, some mountain in Tibet, if I can see the sky, I will have communications everywhere. And the same thing for, devices that are communicating. If I have my robot someplace, it can communicate. So then now it's like, okay, we went from dial-up phones where I have to be in the house and to reach my phone attached to a wire to, okay, I can roam around the city with some dead zones, and I can go out to the rural areas on the highway, right? But now it's like everywhere. So that going literally everywhere at high speed, that's going to be a big change.
Yeah. So again, we talk about how a big deal it was to launch, to try to get to the moon, how big a deal it was the first time that we launched shuttles, how big a deal it was to build the International Space Station. This morning, the news on Apple News, an hour after the launch of this successful launch of the third time, it made number three. It was the number three. You know,
Yeah.
it was number one. Number
No.
one was that the vice president of the United States visited an abortion clinic for the first time. That was the
Okay.
number one news. SpaceX was number three under that one.
Mhm.
So we've come a long way to where this monumental, I mean, you've just talked about the communications aspect.
Yeah.
I think that Elon Musk has been kind of, well, he's either been coy, maybe not even intentionally so. Maybe he never dreamed that it would be as fast and as good as it is. But
Mhm.
maybe he's also being coy. He always said, "Look, I only want a billion users. I just want
Yeah.
the billion users that are the next most likely billion users that can't get good service now on their
Mhm.
Wi-Fi." He says, and then when it comes to cell phones, look, I want T-Mobile. I got a deal with T-Mobile. I'll make a deal with all these other companies to where now they'll be able to give their customers a capability in Tibet.
Mhm.
But maybe he has bigger plans than that. Maybe he has plans to make his own phones or to have his own, direct communication. I don't know. But that's
I,
just communication. That's only one piece of the pie.
yeah. So I think that he politically, because the phone companies, the cell phone companies, they're connected into the governments. So he doesn't want to threaten, China Mobile or that kind of thing, Telemexico or all that kind of stuff. He needs to work with them to say, okay, I will, by taking 30%, we'll work with you. You give me some of your cellular bandwidth, which T-Mobile is doing, others are doing. Say, okay, we'll give you the bandwidth. You help us lower our costs on that other stuff. He gets 30% everywhere versus I must compete with you. So he'll be nice to them
Yes.
because it's like he'll be everywhere in the world and he'll have 99.9% of the
At
satellites.
30%. Yeah.
Right. So I'll take 30%. I'll be nice, 30%. I'll be good for you guys. But he will be on every phone. He'll have X on every phone. He'll have payments on every phone. He'll have communications on every phone because if you're going to do, your 2G, your text, your voice, and data, you'll be going through those satellites, right? In order to do that. And he can then offer, yes, he can offer a new phone that will be just an ex Twitter phone, one with the communications, a cheap phone for the, for Africa, for parts of Asia, stuff like that, to get those last billion on a cheap phone, right? Um, Whether he does partnerships to do that or not, it
What
won't be
difference
where the big money is.
at those levels, what difference does it make? So then that's just the communications part. We're not even talking about the military communications, which has already become a big issue in the last year. We're not even talking about some of the major other kinds of communication like stock exchange communications in terms of that data communications that takes place already in space, but will be taking place even more as he gets his laser set up. I mean, there's so many communication aspects of what's going on with regard to space. But then we go to science and visibility of the Earth, beaming down energy from satellites. I mean, there's the potential for the science and for the technology beyond communications in space is maybe almost as big as communications.
Right. So by dropping that altitude, you can get better pictures, of the Earth. That basically, the resolution gets better. You can always do computer stuff to make the resolution even better. But like the reading the license plate or, reading a piece of paper or something like that, that kind of capability can be there. And by getting closer, dropping that distance I talked about, um, would probably improve resolution by 4 times or something like that. The um, the issue with that is that why weren't people doing that before? Because it takes 20 times more fuel to do it, right? For me to drop from there to here, the atmosphere is not that thick, but for the spaceship, it's gone from nothing to a little bit. And just that little bit means I must use more fuel to stay up there for 5 years, right? So instead of, I don't know, like, half a ton of fuel, now or maybe 100 kilograms of fuel. Now I may need, 2 tons of fuel, right? But for SpaceX, they can say, yeah, instead of 2 tons, now with 4 tons, instead of 100, I launch 50, but they'll then go closer. So because doubling the launch is meaningless to me, I will do that, and then I make bigger satellites with more fuel. So they can, that massive advantage that they'll have by being able to launch 1,000 times more stuff and do it 10 times, 100 times cheaper than anyone else, means that for them, putting up Starlink is almost for free relative to everyone else. And then putting up more fuel is again just easy for them because it's just so much cheaper.
Yeah, and we'll probably have fuel tankers that'll be going from satellite to satellite refilling them.
Well, they have to do refueling up in space, which hasn't been proven yet, in order to go to the moon.
Right.
So NASA paid them $3.5 billion
Right.
make a lander for the moon. That system requires launching this up there and then launching up 8, maybe 20 tankers to refill it to get to full, and then go over to the moon and land with a full 200 tons of material. So they will have the refueling. I think the going around and filling up 20,000, 100,000 satellites is, they'll just say, let them burn, and then we'll launch up a new batch. Because they'll say, it's been, that other satellite's up there for 2-3 years. It's got old tech.
you got to change it out anyway.
So then the whole mass production of it means that I'm going to use the upgraded new one because my tech is going to be moving so fast. But they'll be making satellites like they're making Model Ys.
Yes, well, it is now. I mean, SpaceX is now.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's the thing, is beyond going bigger. It's just like the level of scale is really different. That's the one thing with the science fiction and stuff, is that whenever they predict things, they don't work in economics.
Right.
It's like that insane mass production is like, the difference is not just, okay, the rocket's 3 times better than the Saturn V. Yes, it is. But the fact that it's coming back in one piece is the difference between the 747 and the Hindenburg.
Right.
The Hindenburg went one way and burned up. That's all the other rockets. Yeah. Every other rocket is the Hindenburg.
Yes.
And then they're the 747. Right. So that's the gap. And then 747, if I make thousands of them, then I'm looking at air passenger travel, air cargo travel, where I'm doing tens of millions of launches, 1 billion launches. Like if you count up all the launches of 30,000 Airbus and Boeings, right? You're flying them every day.
So 747s are mass produced, sort of.
Yeah.
Not really quite mass production, but it's pretty close to mass production. But he's talking about in the rockets, real mass production. We're talking about building one of these things like every week or whatever eventually. I mean, they've got 7 of them, I think, that are partially constructed right now, and one of them they're already testing for the next flight. And so they're going to mass produce the booster, mass produce the Starships, maybe even mass produce the grabbers that come out. What do you call those things?
Mechazilla launch towers. Yes, they need to mass produce those. Because if I'm launching the upper stage 10 times a day for passenger travel, I must pretty much dedicate that one launch tower to that one the one rocket.
Right.
So I need to make as many launch towers. Just like, how many runways do we have around the world? Like 5,000, 10,000, right? You need to like constantly have, because I'm using it all the time. The number of planes relative to runways is similar to what I need to have for the number of launch towers relative to that. So it's the world-changing aspect of it is that there'll be so much, right? The fact that we will be able to put packages on there to go $20 a kilo.
You're jumping ahead.
Yeah.
Some of the people out there that are listening may not have been paying attention, but we're also talking about having these rockets go up and just come back down about, oh, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9,000 miles away in 45 minutes. We call that point to point. So point to point rocketry, take off in LA, land in Hong Kong in 45 minutes, take off in LA, land in Europe, anywhere in Europe in 45 minutes. The US Army has already given them, I think it's a $500 million contract for point to point anywhere.
Right.
I guess it's going to have a big enough field, but we're talking, because it's got to be able to land on the moon or on Mars on no, not even a concrete pad. It's got to be able to land in the dust. So the Army wants them to be able to point this baby and just land it in the middle of the war zone.
I personally don't think that that's
you don't think that's going to happen? Okay.
Well, the thing is, the problem is, as we saw with the first orbital test flight,
yes,
was that they had really good concrete below,
yes,
like really strong concrete, Fondag concrete, and then the engine ripped it apart and you blew chunks of it away, right? So you could fly from a launch tower, upper stage, land in some military combat zone, and then land and deliver whatever you want to deliver, right? The problem would be then you could not then take off without wrecking things. That may be part of your plan. If you say, I'm going to land there and then I can fire up the engine again and then create this huge tornado of rocks in order to damage other people.
Okay. But stop that. Let's move back again just for a second.
Yeah.
If you are not launching 2 stages, you're only launching the top stage, right? You're only the Starship is all that's launching. You don't have a booster under it, right?
Right, don't have a booster under it, yeah.
Okay, so is it a less of a problem to get?
Yes, it would be less of a problem, but you would still need
a good pad.
Yeah, so the reason you could do on the moon is that you would have, because the gravity is 1/6,
right,
6 times less,
right.
Then you would have thrusters near the top, tiny thrusters near the top, so that you're using that last bit of landing power, you're very gently landing onto the moon, right? So then you're not, because your rockets would never get within like 40 meters, 100 feet of the moon, because it's so high up, right? With our higher gravity, it'd be more of a problem, right? I think you'd have to do some kind of site prep, just like make some kind of like engineering helicopter pad, where it's like I do a fast deployment. I pre-built some panels, and then the guy lifted out there, steal things, and then I land on it. I could see that being the case. And then the takeoff thing, 6 engines. You'd have to make something pretty damn strong to not have the rock tornado, right? But I think that the U.S. has about 100 bases around the world, a bunch in Korea, a bunch in Europe, and stuff like that. So building a Mechaville launch tower at those bases makes sense, right? I think if we're not fighting any real direct war with anyone, right? When would we need to bring in a bunch of commandos? The other thing is that if I fly close and then I dump out guys with parachutes and stuff, so I'm getting my guys there, but this thing is going, can keep going, restart the engine to go without really landing, right? So that kind of pass by, dump stuff down where I need it to be, right? And then land on the nearby launch tower at Seoul Air Force Base or something, right? That wouldn't make sense to me, right? Because doing that thing, like, it could be technically possible to do it, but it'd be like you're introducing so many other problems to not lose. If I land clean, I can see, okay, maybe I get to land clean, but then taking off again,
it's a big problem.
Is a big problem, right? So, but then, and when would be the use case militarily where I would do that? That I don't get. Like, delivering supplies in a hurry, some outbreak is happening, I gotta deliver something. Yeah, but then I fly over, parachute some stuff in, so I can make that connection, deliver stuff.
In real,
but I don't land the vehicle itself. I fly over and drop stuff off and then go away. Yeah.
Okay, so in other words, I think what we started out to say is that even though it was the third most important headline in Apple today, that's only because some people just aren't thinking about it. I mean, it's just kind of, it's become an industry. It's become like an airplane taking off. It's no longer like, seems like a big deal, but today, no, this was a big deal. And I think those who are paying attention know this is a big deal. And I think we could be 10 years away from having point to point.
No, I think it can happen sooner. Like if they're going to do like 9 launches this year,
Yeah.
and then they get to regular commercial launches, doing
Right.
stuff like next year,
Right.
the point to point. Well, you need to have another launch tower someplace else. They
Right.
need to be able to land
Right.
on the existing launch tower, which I don't think. I think they will happen this year.
Okay.
I think that they can another couple
And it-
launches to get the clean, restart the engine,
Right.
not have the instability. Next one, the one after,
Yeah.
and then they get confident, maybe do it one more time. So 3 launches, which is apparently gonna be 3 months away,
Right.
and then the 4th month, then they try to land on the launch tower. I
Yeah.
can see that happening within 4 months. But if I'm optimistic, maybe it takes 6, maybe it takes
Yeah.
8. But then by next year, then if they don't lose the next rockets, then they start building up rockets, right?
Yeah.
I would have like right now they lost the both stages. They can start keeping stages.
Right.
The fact that I have 7 means I could then have like 10 rockets ready to go all the time because I'm not losing them anymore.
Right.
And then they could then be launching, if they launch once a week, once every 2 weeks, then that's 250 launches with 10 times the payload next year. And they're mostly going to be launching Starlink satellites, right? So that, and then if I'm launching 250 times next year, the point-to-point thing would be build another launch tower someplace else, right? Although point-to-point demonstration would be, you could fly up and then turn around and then, or it could land, go California, Texas. But I think, yeah, so it could happen sooner. I think maybe 2 years, 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. One last thought. It just occurred to me while we were talking. It was also announced today that Tesla has 2.6 million Starlinks.
Oh, Starlink has 2.6 million customers.
2.6 million
So there was
Starlinks.
an announcement, and I covered that on my site, is that the FCC has authorized SpaceX to use the E-band. So there's a particular, set of, A, C, D, whatever, they can use E-band, which lets them have 4 times the bandwidth.
Oh.
They use it for backhaul. So then the communication speeds go up like that. So this thing is improving like leaps and bounds all the time. And they also, so in that announcement, 3-page announcement, they said that they had 2.6 million Starlink customers, which is up from 2.1 million, 2.2 million at the end of last year.
Right.
So then they added in 2 months 400,000 customers.
Yeah,
So that's 200,000 customers added every month, which previously they were adding about like 100,000.
Wow.
So if you can maintain that pace, then by the end of the year, you're at 4.65 million customers by the end of the year.
So you're looking at probably over 10 billion in revenue at that point.
Right. Well over 10 billion, because also it depends upon which kind of customers, whether the premium customers, business customers, the military customers paying more for it, and then RV, mobile, and some other things. So the customer mix determines how much more they have. But then if they can speed things up, get out, because it's more a matter of their satellite dish production.
Right.
If they get more satellite dishes, get them more into like Costco's in Japan, Walmart's, other places, Amazon, sell more dishes, make more dishes, sell more dishes, because the capacity will be there, because they'll double the capacity of the system, or 4x E-band. Actually, I use E-band now. I have more capacity. I can then, provide the service to 15 million, 20 million people. So if they get to 500,000, a million per month, right? Then they could end the year with 10 million, 50 million customers, make $20 billion or more,
Wow.
which is like the NASA budget is
Yeah.
$20 billion. So,
All right, Brian. If you like science and you like this kind of stuff, you should be going over to nextbigfuture.com, and you should go over there and subscribe, and then you should be there all the time, and then you could also join Patreon, and that would help Brian in terms of production value. There's costs to do all this stuff, so you could help him out over on patreon.com, and you could also visit me. If you could stand this face a few more times each day, actually, I'm putting out 3 videos per day about Tesla, Elon Musk, and finance over on Randy Kirk, the video channel. Brian, as always, I think this was a lot of fun, and I hope it was interesting to the folks out there. And I'm sure we'll do some more, maybe even next week.
okay. Thank you.
All right, bye for now.
Bye-bye.